Hi, my name is Benedict. It's been a little while since I've done a video, and to be honest, if you've been following closely, you probably have some idea why. It's been a bit of a dark night of the soul for me. I've had a bit of a rough time, and it comes down to, in the end, daring to be what I am, daring to do what it is that I feel I should do. And some people, they have a problem with that. Now, it's funny, the irony here is that they're the very people who go, oh, but you need to express yourself, man. But as soon as somebody else expresses themselves, out come the knives. Now, if we are here to express ourselves, we have to allow people to express themselves. If we shut people down as soon as they express themselves, we're going to end up with a terrible, terrible situation. Now, I get that most of you who've started this video are now looking to exit. I'm going to ask you not to exit this video, because it is going to be a challenge. It absolutely is going to be a challenge. You may think that what I'm talking about is just a pile of paranoid bullshit. Maybe it is, but let's let God and time decide that, rather than letting somebody else have made that decision for you. And if you follow with me, you'll understand what I mean by that as we get through. So, thanks, Jane. What the subject of this talk, and it's just going to be a talk, is about building things. It's about how we are here to build things. By we, I mean as humans, but even as animals, we're here to build things. As animals, we're here to build a family, which means that if you're a tigger, you have baby tigers, which means there's more tigers, so there's still tigers. That's tigers, tigers, not with an N word. That's the core thing that we're here for, to make sure there is more humans. But there's really only one way for there to be more humans, and for humans to continue. We've got the basic one of, rubbing up against each other after drinking lots of beer and making more little people. We do okay with that one. The problem we've got at the moment is that we've gone into a 20 or 30 year cycle of not building. We've been taught to be very, very embarrassed about the idea of building things. But if we don't build things, what are we? We're actually less than animals, because an animal does what it does by its nature. It doesn't stop to think about, ooh, am I going to go out and get me an antelope today? No, it just goes out and tries to get itself an antelope. Sometimes it's lucky, sometimes it's not so lucky. Sometimes there's antelope for dinner, sometimes there's no antelope for dinner. But it just does it. It doesn't say, oh man, I'm really not in the mood for antelope. Yeah, I know there's an antelope over there, but I'm more in a rabbit mood, stew kind of a mood today. So I think I better go to England to get me a rabbit. This is not how animals work, nor is it how humans should work. And you go, we actually have the facility, the faculties to be aware. We are the one animal that's watching itself, going, I'm watching myself. It's all rather recursive. Don't let that make your head explode, but this is what we do. We're actually able to wake up in the morning and go, I don't feel like going to work. I don't feel like antelope today. I want some rabbit stew. We can get on our phones and find a restaurant that serves rabbit stew. This is what we can do. And we can do a hell of a lot more than that, but that's a simple way of saying there's animals that can only do what they're programmed to do. And there's us. Thank you for telling me the update failed. It didn't. It's just funny. There's us who can actually observe and comment on what we're doing, as I'm doing right now. I'm observing and commenting. And hopefully you are listening, which means you are observing what I say, and hopefully you're commenting. But here's where I'm going to say, please be one of the building people, not one of the destroying people. If you're a destroying person, you're listening and going, Bennett, you're full of shit. But you won't have a reason why. Or if you do have a reason why, it'll actually be somebody else's reason. And ultimately that somebody is going to be Chairman Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot, Hitler, Karl Marx. Because they're the people who really started that whole idea of the... Now this isn't a lecture on politics. It's me trying to say to you, hey, we need to be building. If you're watching this and you're observing and you're reacting, then part of you may not agree, and you don't have to agree. Some people have accused me of saying that whenever somebody doesn't agree with me that I go off the deep end. No, I'm delighted to be called on something and say, hey, Benedict, when you said that, what does this mean? Or what did you mean by that? Or would that not be a better way? I'm delighted to do that. That's called having a conversation. What I'm horrified at is what's happened to me in the last few weeks, but I've observed happen over particularly the last 30 or so years, which is when people who are ignorant, completely ignorant. Now, the definition of the word ignorant is not unknowledgeable. If you don't know something, that's not your fault. I don't know how to speak Swahili. It doesn't make me ignorant. But if I have the opportunity to learn to speak Swahili, and I'm in Swahili land, and I choose not to speak it, I choose to be a classic Englishman and simply shout at the Swahili instead, because obviously they'll understand it if I shout at them, that would make me ignorant. Ignorant being choosing to ignore. As humans, we've got the extra faculty to observe. And then we can talk about it. And what we talk about, what we do based on what we've observed and acted on and created a conversation. Oh, Benedict, when you said this, what about that? Or do you worry about this thing? That's building. That's creating a conversation. It makes me go back and go, no, I still think I'm right because, so I've thought it through a bit more. Or, you've got a really good point. My poor ego right now is taking a beating. I'm going to adjust what my point is. We've now built a better world for both of us. But the last 30 years in particular has said, let's get rid of everything that we've called tradition. They're all bad, they're all wrong, the church, everything's all trying to destroy our lives. And we've turned into a bunch of little emperors. But we know what emperors do. They get clothes, invisible clothes made for them because they're so ignorant that they're more willing to see what they want to see than what is there. And emperors have a terrible, terrible habit of turning into tyrants. Our last century was a century of tyranny. Just about the whole 1900s was taken up with one tyranny after another. The obvious ones being the ones I mentioned before. Hitler, Stalin, Chairman Mao, Pol Pot, Idi Amin. They just kept going. Gaddafi. Bin Laden was another one of them. It was the decade of tyrants where we said we will build little tyrants, and we turned ourselves into individual emperors, and individual emperors turned into tyrants. Now, tyrants often like to start to think that they've started by building. Hitler built the autobahns, so we could all barn on the autobahn. Easy to say I'm building a better Germany. But he transitioned from building a better Germany when he then turned around and said, no, if you're a nigger or if you're a Jew, then I'm going to kill you. And then swept his way across Europe, and ultimately, given time, he would have swept his way across the whole damn world, saying to everyone who was not goose-stepping in his manner, you don't deserve to live, you have no right. So he moved from somebody who was building to someone who was destroying. But I'm going to stop there and say, was Hitler ever building? Was Stalin ever building? Stalin built a lot of buildings, but was he ever building? No. He was merely creating castles for himself, as Hitler tried to turn Europe into a fortress, literally Fortress Europe. Let's put guns and walls around the whole damn thing. When you've got to build a culture, when you've got to build an environment, when you've got to build a self-space that has to be walled with guns, something's horribly wrong. If your neighbours don't want to trade with you, or aren't allowed to trade with you, therefore you need guns, you've got a problem. Now, I'm not saying guns are wrong, guns are great. Guns make it easier to kill antelope. Guns also make it much easier to stop your neighbour when it turns out that his name is Adolf Hitler. If most of Europe had been a little bit smarter and had an awful lot more guns, then Hitler would not have had the impact that he had. Same with Russia. If they'd been better organised, they wouldn't have let Stalin take over. But they did. And this is what happens. We do. We have allowed ideas to take over in the last 30 years, which have been there for a lot longer, that now mean that most people are not building. Now, if you're still with me, great, congratulations. But you may still be thinking, what's this got to do with a music video? Benedict, you're the music guy. You teach us how to make better records. So what's this got to do with it? Great, thank you for asking. This is because as musicians, we are artists with a capital A. What's an artist's job? An artist's job is to represent the human condition. Now, what I've been talking to up to this point in this video is about the human condition. It's big, complex stuff, but it's the human condition. If I put that to a backbeat and said it, it'd be a rap track or something or other. It'd be like, oh man, interesting art, man. Great. Can be presented in a book, can be presented any way you want, but our job, if we set ourselves up to make art of any form, any kind of expression, then we must expand upon the human condition. Now, I know some people really reject that and they say, but I just want to make beats, man. All you want to do is destroy. Because, now here's where we really get to it. Here's the real crux of the matter. Are you here to build or are you here to destroy? If you're not building, as in you're building a better life, a better humanity, a better world, you are actually destroying. You might be piling things on top of each other, like Hitler piled up guns and concrete around the outside of Europe, and Stalin piled up concrete to make all kinds of institutions in which he could torture people. But it wasn't building anything. And you know what happened? Both fell in a heap after a while, once people realised that really everything they were doing was totally fucked up. Now we're at that situation where a lot of what we've been doing musically, artistically, over the last 20 to 30 years is falling in a heap. Plenty of people are going, this is just garbage. We're not building anything. If your average person who likes music and understands music is saying this is no good, you've got a problem. So you can say, I only make beats, man. That's all it's about. It's just the beat, man. Okay, you're allowed to do that. That's dance music. And there's nothing wrong with dance music. I love dance music. I've got a whole section of dance music. It's not the biggest section of my music collection, but I've got Boney M, I've got some Erasure. Sadly, that's not my favourite record. Sorry, guys. There's some great tracks in here. Who Needs Love? Oh, L'Amour. Tremendous. Blue Savannah's a really cool song too, but a lot of the other stuff, it's not Yazoo. But this is all dance. This is pure dance music. It's not the original cover. Cannot get the original cover of this online for some bizarre reason. Pure dance music. I'm swinging on a star. I need a man, I need a man. It's tremendous stuff. It's dance music. It's about just being enjoyable. But it's about an expression of life. Of what in the Bible, and I'm not a God builder at all. Technically, I'm an atheist. But in the Bible, it's about shouting for joy. That's what this is. Great dance music is that. It should be this feeling of like, I'm dancing because life is great. Life may suck, and you just want to go to a disco and throw some shapes. That's cool. So if you're just making EDM, just making beats, man, then be honest. Your job is actually to make people happy. This is definitely not the best record in my collection. Oh, Sherry Misa, oh, Sherry Misa. It's close to drivel. But it's so beautifully done, and it's just fun. It does its job. It does its job pretty well. So if you're saying, but Benedict, you're full of shit, music can just be about dance music, can just be about the beats, man, I don't agree with you in the way you think, but you agree with me in the way I think. Which means that if you can be expressing that joy of disco, then you're expressing something about man. So make sure you do that. I don't own any ABBA, but if I had ABBA, I'd be pointing to ABBA and I'd go, listen to Dancing Queen. There's a lot about the human condition in Dancing Queen. Listen to it, understand it. ABBA did their job really, really well. I've got a Bucks Fizz record. They do their job well. They weren't as skilled craftsmen as Bjorn and Benny, but they did the job well. I enjoy my Bucks Fizz record. So, doesn't matter what genre you're working in. You can be in what I loosely call dark rock, which can range from sort of metal-y kind of stuff through to sort of pop, through to stuff that's just a little hard to describe. These talk about life. If we look at Front 242, it talks about life somehow. Not always easy to understand what the tracks are about, but it's clearly talking about life in some way. This is your job. If you don't want to do your job, you are piling sounds on top of each other, but all you're doing is building walls. Once you've built those walls, you'll feel the need to defend them, because that's just what we do. And that's what I've run into over the last little while. People will say, no, Benedict, you can't have an opinion. Why? Because my opinion rattles their cage. Not because I'm trying to be arrogant. I didn't go to rattle their cage. They rattled their own cage and looked around and said, who's rattling my cage? Pointed to me and then decided they needed to shoot at me. Well, my answer to that is, screw you. So now I'm shooting back. But not personally. I mean, may God have mercy on your soul. The bodhisattva nature of me says, you know, I wish you peace. I do genuinely wish you peace. I'm reaching out to you right now as I have been reaching out over the past 10 plus years that I've been doing this, whether on YouTube or on articles on my own website, trying to say, hey, here's a hand. Take this hand. Let me lead you forward. Let me help you do what you do better. The last thing where this all really came to a head was where I actually showed pretty openly how I helped somebody to do better, and it actually got me some very, very scary responses, which even ended up with my being censored. And now these are the very first people who would accuse others of being Nazis, but they actually censored my right to expression, whilst they claimed they had the right to accuse me of some pretty vile things. So, are you building or are you destroying? If you're simply piling up sounds and going, yeah, this is what I do, man, I'm saying you're destroying. But I'm saying you don't have to. You can continue to do exactly what you do, but you can own it, and if you're writing some kind of dance music, make it joyous. Make me feel happy when I've heard it. If you are writing some kind of metal, this is a joyous record. I'm not playing any of this music for you simply because I don't want YouTube running through, cancelling my video, simply because I'm trying to show something. Sitting here alone in such darkness, waiting to be free. That's not exactly a cheery start to a record. Death means just life. Please just let me die in solitude. But that's a powerful, powerful statement from a powerful, powerful record. It did its job way better than a lot of the later stuff, which just became formula. They just started to pile bricks on top of each other, rather than be expressing something amazing. Expresses something amazing. Dio's work generally expresses something amazing. Same with this Demon record that I found kind of by chance. I don't remember them. They've been around forever. But wonderful tracks. This is almost disco. Rock, rock, till you drop. Rock, rock, never stop. Yeah, not War and Peace. But it's fun. It does its job tremendously well. If you want to be on the more aggressive side of things, great. Have at it. Go for it. Not my favourite record, Van Macht, if you happen to be watching this, but it says something. Exactly what it says, I don't know, but it says something. This one's a lot more open about what it says. So say something, express something about life. If you just want to express the joy of dancing, express the joy of dancing. If you want to tell a story, please tell a story. Do that, that's good. Because that's building. These records are all building. I've not been a big fan of Ozzy. I've probably been wrong. I found his gruff voice and kind of aggressive approach didn't really work for me. It's the same with Gillan from Purple. But when I take some time and listen to this over and over, I start to realise that there is a bigger story. That Ozzy is actually a life-affirming guy. I think Ozzy's actually a softie. He'd probably want to hit me in the back of the head with a baseball bat for saying that, but I think Ozzy's a softie. He built a tremendous career, gave a lot of people a lot of pleasure, because he was actually telling stories that were interesting. So it doesn't matter what you do, it's not about genre. You can be doing heavyweight stuff, and I've got some scarier records than these. But you've got to be building. So, here's a record that I was listening to today. Yeah. Now, this is actually a bit of a forgotten record. Van Halen's 1984. Jane had it on in the car as we're going up to killing practice this morning. Sorry, Taekwondo. I don't practice. God, no, might break a nail. But she had it on the car, so it wasn't my decision to put it on. Definitely no argument from me. But it came on, and it's like, oh, cool. So the intro track's very synthy. It's an Oberheim, oh, beautiful synth. Gets into jump, yeah. Ba, 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 ba. But it's really the other tracks. Like Panama's, it's a blues track. It might be hard rock, but it's a blues track. And that's why I've got it filed under rock rather than metal. When people might go, but that's a metal record. No, it's not. It's a hard rock record, it's a blues record. You listen to the attention to detail. What Eddie and Diamond Dave built here is really lovely work. But you know what? Towards the end of the 80s and as we go into the 90s, this kind of material people wanted to destroy. Eddie worked hard, and Diamond Dave, in his own annoying way, worked hard to make a tremendous record. If you doubt that, then just pop on Panama. There's a lot of work in that, and boy, is there a lot of gusto in that too. There's a lot of feel. It's got this swampy, hot feel when Dave's singing about being hot and sweaty. You feel that way. There's a lot of work. You listen to the rest of the record, there's a lot of detail. It's not Eddie just being like, let's turn this up to 13 and go, other people were starting to do that. They were starting to destroy rock and roll that way. But Eddie was still saying, here's this detail in his playing, and his quality detail. It's not just to say, look how fast I can play. He played nice blues there. He really did. But people turned around, I noticed, from starting in the late 80s, but I didn't notice it so much then, but really as we got into the early 90s, very much in swing by the mid-90s, people started to garbage this kind of music. And 1984 has gone from being a super important record, which it was and is, to a bit of a laughing stock. Because, it's too pop, man, it's too fun. Well, hang on, who the fuck are you? Who voted you in as the person who has the right to destroy others? Also, who said that having fun is a bad thing? I bet if someone came along to you and your mates when you were young and said, stop having fun, you'd be like, piss off, Hitler. And you'd kind of be right. As long as you weren't trashing their stuff, you'd kind of be right. So we as musicians, because we tolerated this stuff, as musicians, we started this shit. And we tolerated it as well. But so many young wannabe musicians, particularly on the techno side, because they were the ones that I heard the most. But I heard plenty of metal guys being negative about this kind of stuff. In the early 90s, I remember reading stuff in magazines from metal guys, the Kerrang type magazines, where they were dumping on Judas Priest. And that's just horrifying. Like, how can you dump on Priest? Because Priest were one of the first bands. They opened the pathway for you. Yes, you might like Venom better now than you like Priest. But how can you dump on Priest? But a lot of bands jumped on that bandwagon to say, oh, that old shit. Oh, new shit's great. But you know what? Their new shit wasn't great. It was just shit. They weren't able to play with the finesse of Priest. So they destroyed it. Exactly what's happened with Van Halen's 1984 record. It's a clever piece of work, beautiful work, and his use of the synthesizer, particularly in Jump, and then I'll Wait, there's like kudos, absolute kudos for doing that and making it work. Eddie was building something. So I'm going to turn around again, and I know this rambles a bit, but I feel like I really need to get all this out. Again, just a little sidetrack. Commonly with videos, I feel that there's this pressure to say, oh, well, I have to have some sort of technique. I've got to show you where to turn the knobs before I can slip you some other kind of thing. Well, no. This just would not let that happen. To me, this has to be a direct what it is. You'll listen or you'll not listen. You'll know that because you're here or you're not here. We tore this record down. We let it happen. Not me personally, because whenever anybody said that kind of stuff to me, if they weren't in front of me, I just felt sad. I felt sad for them, that they thought so little of the amazing things that have been done. I mean, look at me. I've been listening to Glenn Campbell. Tremendous. Might have been a prick at times, but tremendous work. Just tremendous. I'm interested in what these people built. These bands that people wanted to dump on, it made me sad. If they did it in front of me, it made me angry. Now, they'd get shitty with me and they'd dump on me and they'd fire their guns at me because how dare I defend? But you know what I was defending? I wasn't directly defending Eddie Van Halen. I wasn't directly defending Glenn Campbell. I wasn't directly defending Toto or John Waite or the Furs or Queen. I was defending life. Because life is about building something, coming full circle finally. If you're not trying to build something, you are destroying. You're refusing to live, you're refusing to build. So we should be building. We should be building our own stuff, and then we should be helping each other build. When I was a lot younger, we worked on building a scene. Hey man, let's get a scene together. So if you're in a band and you knew a couple other people who are in similar bands, you'd book each other. You'd say, oh, like one person would be a bit more organised than the others. They'd be the sort of business savvy person, and they'd say, well, okay, what room can we get? And they'd go find a pub. It'd normally be a horrible pub, probably a pub that's already got demolition signs on the front of it. But you'd go hire that room, and you'd put yourself in, and you'd book those other couple of bands, because it wasn't about just you. It was about those bands around you. So you created a scene. It was about working together to build something together, to build something. Now, not all three of those bands would have made it. In reality, most of those bands never made it. But because everybody was building, people were more likely to come to the show. They might see the headliner was a band they've heard of and not have heard of the other two guys, the other two acts. But they'd come along and they'd see those acts. And they'd go, oh, it's not just this one band doing that thing that I like. There are other bands doing this thing. We have a scene, man. They'd go home, they'd talk to their friends. This is before we had phones. They'd actually talk to their friends. And next time there was a show, those bands would all be on together again. Why? Because they were a scene. More people came. You built a scene that way. But that stopped once we hit the early 90s because everyone was like, don't be a destroyer, be a builder. So, we've looked at what's happened with music, what we've done. We've said, oh, wham, that was shit. It wasn't fucking shit. If you can write a song remotely like Careless Whispers, I might be vaguely interested in what you have to say about how George Michael misused a chord. If you can't, I have no interest. But if you have that ability to write a song as good as Careless Whisper, I bet you have a huge amount of respect for that song, in which case you would not seek to destroy it. The only reason you would have to want to destroy that is to lower the bar. Right now the bar is high if we're looking at Careless Whisper. Whether you like that song or not, it's a beautifully done song, beautifully delivered, beautifully written, don't care who wrote it, who did what. Tremendous piece of work. The bar is high. If I know that I'm too lazy to even try to go for that bar, what are my choices? Do nothing, that'll at least be honest, or to destroy it, to take the bar away. Now at here I can go, oh look, I'm king of the world. Fuck off, you're king of nothing. So build, acknowledge where credit is due. Overall, this is a cool record. It's not my favourite Wham record, but it's a cool record, and Careless Whisper is worth the price of entry many times over. So let's just put that aside for now. Building. Why do we need to build? Now you might say, but Benedict, you're talking about big picture stuff, the whole human race and eternity and all that bullshit. That's like fucking climate change, isn't it? No, I'm not talking about it from that perspective. What are you building for yourself? Sorry, Jane, I'm busy. What are you building for yourself? Let me show you what I built for myself. Now, I got my first keyboard in '88. I didn't intend to be a musician. I intended to be a mix engineer and a record producer, because that's the way you worked yourself through. You earned your kudos as a mix engineer, or recording engineer, mix engineer, and you moved up into production as the opportunities came. My opportunities did not come, in part because somebody put his hands where they didn't belong and the word got around and I got burnt. But I put together my first thing in 1988. Now you might have noticed me scroll down. I'm going to do that again. I want you to notice as I scroll down. This is not about my ego. I'm trying to show you this is what you need. If you want to build anything, this is what you need. 2019, I've got another one on the go. 2020, it's being worked on my drive. I asked a couple of people to work with me on it. They said, no man, too much effort. Piss off. Go dig a hole somewhere else. Don't get up in my face about it. 1988, my very first thing. Let me scroll down and show you here. A horror. Didn't have a cover then, it was just a cassette. Listen to it. It's terrible. It is truly terrible. It's in mono. Originally, it was just over on the left-hand channel. There was nothing on the right-hand channel. Because my Casio CZ1000 was mono. It had one output. I didn't have a Y jack to plug that into both sides of my boombox, my cassette deck. I had one, so I plugged it in. Rather than saying there are all these technical reasons why I can't do this, like, knowing how to play, I got in and did it. Now, I'm as proud of this now as I was then, if not more so, because I know that everything else that I've done, this record that's going to come out this year, early-ish, if I can get things done fairly quickly, if not at least this record sitting here at the end of 2019, that is built on this cassette. Each track's a few seconds long. It was made up as I went. Each track was one pass. But I put them together, I gave them names, I turned it into an album with a concept. This cover didn't come till later because it was just a cassette that I'd formerly used to store computer programs on, so it wasn't even a good quality cassette. But it was done. The whole idea was, I said, I have arrived as an artist, I've made a piece of work. My family looked at me funny when they listened to it, but they didn't understand, and nor should they have had to. I think it's a shame they didn't understand, but many of you would have hidden this work. You would have gone, oh, but it's mono. You can't have music that's mono. Why not? Whose work are you building? Are you building yours, or are you building somebody else's, some invisible they? Stalin, Chairman Mao, Pol Pot, Che Guevara, Adolf Hitler. You're building their work? Are you piling up stones for them? Are you building walls that they're going to then ask you to man with a gun? Is that what you're doing? Build your work. I built my work, and I'm not going to hide it, because it's the foundation that everything else was built upon. Yes, we can go back and have a bit of a laugh at it. But you know what? It's got a charm of its own. It might be a unique charm, but it has a charm of its own. So I put this up at the earliest opportunity that I could. Back then we didn't have Bandcamp. And I will not delete it. Some of my older works I've had people try to say nasty things about. They tried to say some nasty things about my newer work too, but screw you. Because what I learnt about those people that say nasty things is if I go over and have a look at what they've done, have a look at their Facebook, have a look at their portfolio, most of the time there is no portfolio. That's over 80 projects completed and published, some of which have gotten awards. Now, I'm not saying that to say, la-di-da me, but if you want to criticise me, you've either got extremely large balls or a good portfolio. It may only be one song. Your whole portfolio may be like Careless Whisper or Richard Marx' Hazard. I'll take you seriously, as long as you're not being a dick. But if your whole catalogue is effectively nothing, or you don't even have a portfolio, what have you built? What have you got to pass on to the generations? You've got nothing, so you've got no right to comment. So the very first thing that I've got here is if someone says, oh, how dare you comment, I'll say, well, show me what you've done. Show me your right to comment. And I'm not interested in your, oh, but it's my feelings, man. Show me what you've done. I get kudos, I get credit for this. Even if people don't necessarily like my work, I get credit for this. One of the most common responses I get when I ask people to go have a look at my work, they go, wow, you've got so much stuff. Now I know from the way they've said that they don't like my work, and that's okay. They don't understand it. They don't have to. But you know what? They've noticed that I've done a lot of work, and I haven't hidden it. We ran this, we started it about 2 years ago. We started it purely as a review site. I tried to get musicians to send me material that I would review. I find most musicians wouldn't send me material. How weird is that? Everybody's going, but I need exposure, man, until you offer them exposure, and then they won't give you any. And then what's worse is that had people start to be abusive, because how dare I not say they were the most amazing people ever. Really? Really? Again, when I looked at what had they built compared to what had I built, they built virtually nothing. They had nothing to show, virtually nothing to show, and I had a lot to show. Your job is to build and to do something interesting. But the other thing was we just revived this. This went on hiatus for a year after copying some negativity from certain people and some others, and the fact that we'd gone out of our way to help some acts, and then when it came time that they could have paid that back, they didn't. I got very burnt on the idea of, well, why am I putting time? Because I was putting a couple of days a week into running this and getting nothing back but abuse. But we thought, look, let's have another go. This time we're going with a forum. If you're understanding and if you're with me this far, then I think we'd be delighted to have you come over and have a chat in the forum. I think we might get on well. I think we might be able to have conversations. But when we were putting this back together, we were surprised how, in a year's time, what a high percentage of the people that we had reviewed had actually deleted their material. Remember I said, I keep this, and I keep this with pride. This is the foundation, the basement, perhaps, of everything I'm doing now. It's here. You can actually hear a lot of my style in here. My choice of notes is probably better here, but you can hear it in here. I don't throw it away, I don't hide it. Building means that you put everything up and you keep it there. If you're looking to build a profile as a musician, you must not delete your back catalogue. Absolutely, vitally, must not. If you did it, you need to be proud of it. If you posed for Playboy, that's part of your thing. If you're embarrassed about it, don't hide it, because somebody's going to find it and show it to you when you won't be in control of it anymore. If I suddenly was having number ones and I was like, the next Hans Zimmer, and this was hidden somewhere, somebody would try and hit me over the head with it. I bet some dick would probably try and hit me over the head with it even though it's on my own site proudly, in which case he's just going to get told he's a dick and he's going to look like a dick because I'm just going to go, isn't that great? And he's going to go, nowhere to stand. Because he was looking to destroy me. He would be looking to cut me down to his standards. Put it there. If it's good enough to have done, it's good enough to be there, and it should stay there. You might have done better work now. Put that on top. If anybody listens to this and then goes, oh, well, you used to do shit work. Yeah, of course I did. It was 30 fucking years ago. If you're judging me by something I did 30 years ago, now, I don't think we've got anything in common. All you're wanting to do is cut me down. You're trying to take Careless Whispers and say it's a shit song so that you don't feel so bad about living here. Don't need you. Build. So, all your work, publish it and keep it published. So, you know then you are building, because look, this is only a fraction of my work. This is it in list form. This is some of it. I got some of it recently and put it back up. Some of these things in here, they are not my best work. But that's why I say they're not my best work, and I sell them for $1. Somebody's bought them all, seems to be enjoying them. Brilliant. Everyone wins. But keep as much of your catalogue there as possible. Bandcamp, they don't care how much content you've got. So you've got no excuse with saying, oh, but Bandcamp only let me have 23 songs before I have to start taking some off before I can put up my 24th song. That's pathetic. It's a non-issue. Same with YouTube. You could put like bazillions of songs on YouTube and they're not going to be saying, you need to take some of this down. It's there. They want your content. They want the whole bloody lot of it. Put it out there. Because once you've put it out, look, just this alone, this shortened list, that's impressive. If I'm feeling a bit sensitive, I can go look at my work and go, you know what? Yeah, these people may be dumping on me. They may be trying to cut me down. But I've built all this and more. If I need to, I can go have a look at their site. A, they won't have one. B, if they do, there won't be a portfolio on it. And see if I find their stuff maybe on YouTube or SoundCloud or whatever, they've probably got 3 or 4 scrappy tracks, the last of which they posted 3 or 4 years ago. They have built nothing, where anything they tried to build they abandoned. It's like Noah getting halfway through building the ark and walking off to have a beer. Rain starts, world goes under, Noah goes under, all over Red Rover. That's what that story's about. It's about saying we've got to build things. Because building things is what's going to continue our selves. I'm going to die. It's going to happen. I'm 50. I'll be lucky to get another 50 years. After that, what's left of me? Worm food? After that, what's left of me? Nothing. Because those worms won't even be there either. But if the internet's still there, this is still here. This is what I built. What I've taught my children will still be there too, but this is what I personally built. I know Van Gogh was a bit of a troubled fellow, but you know who I'm talking about. You might think, oh, the guy who hacked his ear off, but that's you just trying to be a smartass. What you're really thinking is the picture with the stars, the one with the sunflowers or something. You're thinking of something he actually did. Your job's to build. And keep what you have built visible. Very important. If you're going to try and build your profile as a musician, as an artist, and you go by chopping your own legs off, all you're going to do is get shorter. If you're listening to Careless Whispers or ABBA's Dancing Queen or whatever you hold up as being like that really is, I don't think anyone could write a better song than that. You've got to work towards that. Each thing you do gets you a little closer. If you go removing what you did before, first record gets you to here, delete it. Put out another record, gets you to there, delete it. Put another record, gets you to there, delete it. Put out another record, gets you to there. You see where we've gotten to? Nowhere. Build. You must build. Build each album out of building lots of songs, pieces of music, and they have to have stories. I've got other articles here about story. Tell stories. They can be simple. They can be get up and dance. That's a story. Make people want to get up and dance. Not by going, here's the formula. You turn it to there and then you do this, and because that's what you do, man. It's like, yeah, you spineless Hitler follower. That's not what the world wants from you. The world does not want you to be following Hitler, piling up concrete that you're then going to need to man with a gun to defend. Because if you heard me right now, I bet you're looking to grab your gun to defend your pile of loops. Ha. If you've built something and it's great, it'll largely defend itself. You know what? George Michael didn't need to defend Careless Whispers because Careless Whisper. Just listen to the bloody song. That's all you need to do. If you don't know the song, go listen to the song. And if you can't walk away going, oh my God, you weren't listening to the song. You were just listening to Hitler in here. So build your discography. That's what you've got to help you climb. Everything you do should help you climb. It's then your calling card. It's what you've got to show. If somebody lands on your site, if I send someone here, most of the people I send here don't get what I do. So be it. Makes me sad, but so be it. But I understand what I do. But if they look, I'm not impressed with somebody who releases one song. I might be impressed with the song, but I'm not impressed with the person who releases one song. I'm impressed with somebody who has a career, who has several songs at least, and that each is as good as the one before. People will notice that. So even those people who don't understand what I do, or it doesn't fit their idea of what Hitler told them it should sound like, it's okay, it's their thing. But at least they know that I do a lot of work, that I have built a lot, and I've gotten awards for that too. So it shows that when I build things, when people are paying attention, I've made the world better for someone. I've made it better for the filmmaker, because I helped him win an award, but I've made it better for the people who watched that film, because they had to sit in a room and watch a whole pile of films in a festival. It's got to be a bit ugh. And they've said, you know what, this was the least sucky time that we had whilst we were sitting in that room. It'd be easy for me to say, well, this was the best time, this is the time where we're happy, but it sounds like shit. You know, it sounds like one of those weird affirmations where the fat woman stands in front of the mirror going, I am thin, I am thin. Yeah. At least I know with that award that I've got for that film in that little festival, they're saying this is the least sucky time we had. It may be the best time they had, in which case bonus, but I know it's the least sucky time. You know why? Because I can't cut that down any further. Build. Really important. So your job is to build. What you build is up to you. Now what you actually build is up to you. Hang on, shouldn't I edit that because I just said the same thing again? I did that deliberately. What you build is up to you. How you build it is up to you. It's slightly different, isn't it? Now I've talked about this before, but you probably didn't think about it. Here's the bit where I'm really going to say to you, as a musician, what are the tips and tricks? What are the techniques you should use to do this? Your own. But I'm supposed to sidechain it, man. You know, it's like sidechaining, man. That's what makes things, you know, happen, man. Get Hitler out of your head. Whose music is this? Hopefully you're saying mine. As in yours, not mine. I do my music, you do yours. It's yours. Now there are some basic rules that we've got to obey if we want to make it listenable. But sidechaining is not something that makes it listenable. Sidechaining is merely following somebody else's rules. When Testo or whoever did it first, yeah, it's cool, it's clever. It's like, you know, that's wrong, but that's clever. And then every other lackwit, person with tiny testicles, followed along. It's not a nice technique. It's just everyone was too scared to build their own thing. They're like, oh, well, he's had a hit with that, so I'll just sneak in underneath and take some of his hitness. And every fucking track has the same fucking side fucking chain fuckery. What have those people built? How many of those side-chained tracks are actually hits? Yep, basically none. Now you're probably going to say, oh, but how many of them are actually hits? By hits, I mean in 20, 30 years we could actually name them. Our children would name them. Are any of them going to be like Hotel California, Dancing Queen, Ride Like the Wind? No, because they're not like that now. All you're doing is destroying yourself. If you spend all your time going around YouTube looking for tips and tricks, how to do that. No. There are some basics to understand. But if you want to mix the kick drum really bright up here, because that tells your story better than mixing it down here, then this is what you should be doing, so long as you understand why you're doing it. If you're mixing it up here because you don't like your vocals, then you're just destroying yourself. Put it down here and put your vocals back up there where they belong. What's your story? What's the story you're telling? And build that. Because if we've had no real hits as a result of sidechaining, and I'm just picking on sidechaining because it's been the mental thing that everybody's done. The other one that everybody's done is the ostinato thing. You get some string samples and you make them ba 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 ba. It wasn't that exciting when somebody first did it. I don't know who first did it. Maybe it was Hans Zimmer, but honestly, it wasn't the best thing he's ever done. Sorry, Hans, but it wasn't. If that was you, it wasn't. I was watching Interstellar not so long ago. Jane wanted to watch it, and she really likes the film. It's an interesting film. And I'm hearing that. And I'd heard people at the time go, oh, amazing soundtrack, man, it's like, I'm just thinking, sorry, Hans, it's not. There might be some good moments in there. There are a couple of moments where I was like, oh, yeah. But it's not Dunkirk. Dunkirk's interesting. That's really interesting. Find out what it is you need to say, and you've got to say it your way. Stop scouring the internet, trying to find out what the tyrant of the day, the Adolf Hitler, the Stalin, the tyrant of today, what they're telling you you're supposed to do. Because it's not winning you anything. All those tracks that have done it, what have they won? Nothing. Because none of them are going to be remembered. Most of them didn't even get anywhere near making any money. So using the trick didn't help them. Didn't get them anywhere at all. Do something that tells a story that's yours, so that at the end of the day, even if it is a bit dire, like my horror, you can say and you can know that it's yours. Because it's not about you. Because when a fan comes along, and a fan I define not as somebody who appears and plays something on SoundCloud, or even worse on Spotify, where they're just ripping off the artist by not paying for it. They're prepared to drink the coffee or drink the beer, but they're not going to pay for it. You know what would happen in a real bar if you did that? And rightly so, because it's called stealing. A real fan is somebody who's looking for music and wants to engage with it, wants to enjoy it, actually wants to pay for it. Who hears something like Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here and goes, fuck me, man, that sounds like God. And it does. And they go out there and they buy that record so they can say, I own a piece of God right here, because they do. That's who you're looking for. And they're looking for you. Maybe not you personally, because they probably don't know you exist. And that's fine, because it might be creepy if they did. But they're looking for somebody who is saying something genuine. Like if you're with me right now, you're hearing something in here. Something that makes you go, yeah. I mean, I understand it, but you know what? There's something here. Great. I'm delighted. Somebody told me this morning, and it was just really nice for me to hear, and probably helped me make this video, because this video needed to be made, whether you're interested or not. She actually told me a couple of things that I'd said to her over probably 6 months. First thing would have been about 6 months ago. The last one would have been 1 to 2 months ago. I told her a couple of things. And she didn't necessarily believe me at the time. Don't blame her. And she made a point of coming to me this morning and saying, you know, Bennett, when you said that thing, that's exactly what happened. When you said that other thing, that's exactly what happened. Thank you. She didn't necessarily believe me when I told her, but she didn't delete it from her memory. So when the match came, the pattern matched, she was able to say, I got advice on that already, and was able to make the right decisions, or know that they were the right decisions, because the advice was there, it all matched up. Thank you. This is what I'm trying to do for you here. If you're watching, especially if you're watching this far, every time I say or do something, this is what I'm trying to do for the world and you individually. Build your thing. Tell your story. If it's a little rough around the edges, so be it. Because the true fan is looking for the person who truly expresses something. Floyd's Wish You Were Here. That expresses a lot. That's pretty amazing. There's some tremendous work in there. But recently I picked up something that none of you will have ever heard of, unless you happen to be in Brisbane in the mid to late 80s. It was recorded in, I think, 1985 by a 3-person punk band, back when punk was punk. These days people go, oh, it's pop. But they start to hear the recording. You can find this on Bandcamp. Probably just type in Post No Bills, but you're looking for that. It'll be under Triple Z's thing, old Brisbane bands. I wasn't in Brisbane at the time, but a few years later I was, and I ended up being introduced to the girl in the band, Ildiko, and we were pretty close for some time. Not a girlfriend, but we were close friends. She had quite a big circle of bohemian friends, and I was part of that. This is a great record. Listen to it. Again, I'm not going to press play simply because I don't want YouTube going takedown order and all that kind of stuff. But when you first start listening to it, from a modern taste, I bet you your first reaction is going to be, this sounds awful. Yes, it does. This is what real recordings were like back in the day. These guys did it in a studio. I can't remember what studio it was. It was probably falling down. But they did it in a studio, but it still sounds like shit. But this is what a true indie record should sound like. It shouldn't sound perfect. It should sound raw. And these songs are straight up in your face. And there is some really tremendous work in every single one of these tracks. Thanks for All the Fun's my least favourite because it's a political song, but it's clever. Flo has one, Joey's one. Someone actually had to tell me what that meant, how embarrassment. Not my favourite, but the one in A, great, Fleas in the Carpet. There's fleas in the carpet, is hell without flames, there's no one for beauty and juvenile games, it's just the fleas in the carpet. This is what you need to be doing. Not to copy it, not to say, how can I EQ my guitars so they sound like they're coming in a jam jar? No. It's the rawness with which this got on tape. That there are those ideas. The band couldn't continue it, they broke up, they never worked again. I don't think any of them ever had musical success, which was a shame. But 1985, 95, 05, 15, 20. So 35 years later, this is still a great statement. They built something. So forget all this stuff you've heard about techniques. Forget it. Put it aside for now. If you don't know how to mix, don't mix. Merely make it sound okay. And the moment you find yourself going, oh, but I have to, this doesn't... Stop. What's the story you're telling? If your drums are barely audible because it's the only way you can make them sit in the mix, so be it. It won't ruin your song. It won't ruin the story. You'll, matter of fact, be building your story, because you'll be saying, my story is more important than the drums. That's important, isn't it? My story is more important than the drums. Because you know what? Drums are a dime a dozen. Even good drums are a dime a dozen. You can learn better technique. You can work with somebody else who has better technique. Because that's what happened in these days. You didn't go, I can't release a record until I know how to mix it and make it sound like FM radio, so I sound like Kanye. Nobody thought like that back then. That was just like fucked up. If you talked like that in the pub after the gig, people just go, there's something wrong with you. You get in, you make your record, you tell your story. If you say, I want a better mix than I can do, you don't put your career on hold for 80 years whilst you try to collect tips and tricks off YouTube, which never work. You make a relationship with someone else who has those skills. Because let me tell you, most of the people who have a good skill set in one area don't have particularly great skills in other areas. Oh no, how dare I be judgmental? No, I'm not being judgmental. I'm merely making a judgment, which is true. Glenn Campbell, pretty good singer, great guitarist. Was he a great human being? His wife may not be quite so comfortable to say yes unreservedly. He could be a pretty nasty fellow. He learnt to improve himself. So don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect for Glenn, and he improved himself as a man, and that's good. But was he a great winemaker? No. And you sort of go, well, why would you pick that? Well, I don't know. These days we've got the idea that we have to be a great everything. Was he a great auto mechanic? I don't know, probably not. He'd have broken his nails, he wouldn't be able to play guitar. Was he a great 200-metre runner at the Olympics? Well, I know for a fact that he wasn't, because he was never at the fucking Olympics. So why do we spend our time trying to destroy ourselves by being all these things that we can't be? Life wants you to build. What does life want you to build? It wants you to build what it wants you to build. And you'll go, yeah, but what's that, Benedict? You've got all this time, you haven't told me what to build. I've told you what to build right from the very beginning. What you need to build is what it is you need to say. You got to work that out. Like, I need to make this video because I was getting blocked because I wasn't making this video. It's starting to block me from doing other things. Because I wouldn't let this out. So I'm letting it out. And it will be of use to someone somewhere. So it's not purely ego and me going, because the message is there. What are you to be letting out? Sometimes you don't know what that is. It's understandable. I read something online. There was somebody yesterday in a synthesizer group going, and she was going, oh, but I feel blocked. I go to my keyboards and I just feel blocked. I can't write anything. And I just thought, oh, you poor thing. I don't feel sorry for her. It's her decisions. Everybody was giving the usual cliched advice, tips and tricks. Pick up a different instrument. Play things differently. Stand on your head, play with your toes. Wipe shit on the walls. All of these things supposedly would break her creativity block. Good luck with that. All you do is create more stress. So my answer to her was quite simply, find the story you want to tell, and the one you have the courage to tell. Because most of the time we don't have the courage to admit what the story is we want to tell. My story, as far as I'm aware, what I want to tell is what I'm telling you right now. I want to help you tell your story. This is how you tell your story. It's not in side-chaining the fuck out of everything. That's how to not tell your story. That's how to tell Adolf Hitler's story for him. He's delighted for you in doing that. It's not your story, though. It's not what life wanted you to do. It wanted you to tell your story. So if we listen to Glenn Campbell sing other people's songs, and he did plenty of that, in part because he played on these songs originally, so he went off and did some covers of them, but he didn't write a lot of songs. Mostly the songs were written by other people, but some of them were actually covers. You know, these were already known songs, and he played them. But when Glenn played them, he played them different. He played them his way. Better, worse, no matter. He played them his way, and they're good. The stuff that he did with Jimmy Webb, Wichita Lineman, nothing like it. Just nothing like it. That's Glenn Campbell. That was his message. His message didn't always match what his real life was, but it's there. You really listen to Rhinestone Cowboy or something like that? Glenn's telling us what he's struggling with. That was his message. Don't fall for the glitz. You got to stay with what's true, what matters. So he had a message. Even if the song was a pop song, he had a message, and he drove that message his whole life. Even if he didn't always walk the walk. So what's your message? You got to find that. I gave the message to this lady. Find your story, have the courage to tell it. That'll fix your writer's block. Someone else came along and sort of commented on everybody's comments and got to mine, told a little story, and he said, you know what, Benedict's right. Thank you. Thank you. And he told a story of how he was blocked some time, and so he grabbed something or other. It was kind of trivial. All right, something that interested him. He grabbed this thing, started telling a story around it, and it ended up being really kind of deep. He ended up letting a lot of his emotions and feelings out from this thing. His story found its way out. The only way to let your story find its way out is not by goose-stepping to Adolf Hitler's tune, which is to sidechain the fuck out of everything. To do all those tips and tricks shit. But all that it could ever do at best is make you sound like every other fool who's following those tips and tricks. That is not how you get fans. You've got to do something special. Glenn Campbell did something special. Pink Floyd did something special. Post No Bills with this tape did something special. And you know what? They helped launch me. So if I got famous, I guess I'm all over the internet now, but if I got famous, I tend to forget this tape. But you know what? This was one of the real pivotal moments in my life as a musician, because along came this tape, rough as guts. I knew them off the radio, but I knew some of these songs off the radio, and so when I got the chance to meet Ildi, and then the chance to have the tape, it was like, but the fact that these guys did this, that gave me a lot of courage to do it myself. It's like they've told their story. I could tell my story too. My story doesn't sound like Post No Bills, nor should it. My story sounds like my story. Go listen to my stuff if you want to work that out. Or send me an email, no, not an email, send me a messenger thing asking me to help you understand the story. But you better have done some homework first. If you come to me having listened to 4 seconds of my stuff going, man, can you help me understand your story? Piss off. Go listen to my work first. Let's build something together. So for you, the artist who's listened this far, good on you. You're interested in changing something. The thing that I'm going to say to you to change is to build. Don't go piling bricks on top of each other in the service of Hitler. He doesn't need anyone servicing him anymore, thank God. If you feel you need to be in the service of somebody, and a lot of us do, quite honestly we do, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just choose your master wisely. If you are of that kind, you can choose to be in service to yourself. My higher self or whatever. That thing, that story that I feel the need to share with the world, the thing that I can give to the world to make it better. Mr. Tesla, he wanted to make the world better, largely with electricity type things. He was busily inventing the internet and Wi-Fi. Whether it was a whack idea, I don't know, but he was busy trying to invent it. He gave us AC, power. Edison was busy trying to dig a deep hole for us, which would have ultimately, almost effectively, prevented us from having electricity and all the amazing things like, hospitals, where people don't have to die every 12 seconds, because DC current wasn't a viable thing. Whereas Tesla, he got his head around AC. That gave us everything. The fact that you can watch this is Tesla. He built something. Easy for you to think, well, what's that got to do with me? It's fucking electricity, man. But everything you do is electricity based. Tesla. Go tell your stories. That's what the world wants from you. If you can build something, post no bills. They didn't build a lot on their own. They never did anything but this tape before they broke up. But they launched me. Now, maybe right now I am launching you. If by you listening to me, from having listened to Post No Bills, you go off and do something really amazing. Whether that's find the cure for world hunger, release a record that's as great as Hotel California. Let time decide. But do something, build something that is you. Under your steam. Now, if you struggle with the idea of doing it to yourself, of working for yourself, rather than working for Hitler, because that's what all these rules are about, then choose another one. God. Now, I am an atheist. I do not believe in this Zeus character who is presented to us. But if you read the Bible a bit more carefully, a lot more carefully, and there's stuff out there, I'm just reading Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules, and he's really got that very, very nicely sorted. He's very smart, very, very smart man, very well thought man, very well researched man. If you think that he's some kind of Nazi, then go read the book with an open mind. I know a lot of people reading that book with a closed mind. It won't work. You've got to read it with an open mind. Nonetheless, there is nothing wrong with taking God, because he doesn't do any harm to anybody. He is merely the perfect. What does God do? What's God famous for? Building the universe. In the beginning there was the Word. Whose word? God's word. When he built man, what did he build man like? God. So when you build your songs, what do you build them like? God. No, sorry, you. You don't build them like Adolf Hitler. You don't build them like Testo or, I don't know, Billie Eilish or Taylor Swift. That's a losing proposition, because the world doesn't need another one of them. They've already got one of them. The world doesn't want another one. What the world wants, what nature wants, is you. So, God is okay to work for. But understand, ultimately, it's you. You tell your story your way. That's really important. Do not waste time destroying your ability to build your story by A, following the advice of Hitlers, because that's what they all are. They're all just little Hitlers. Work it out what you need to do. But be adaptable. Because tyrants like Hitler and Stalin are not adaptable. That's the number one way of telling a tyrant they're not adaptable. When his generals went to him and said, yeah, we don't want to do it this way, we're going to lose the war. You know what he did? Shot them. When Stalin's generals went to him and said, hey, Stalin, we don't want to do it this way, we're going to lose the war. You know what he did? Shot them. Pretty well every tyrant we can go through and say, well, what happened when his generals said, hey, if we do this, we're going to lose the war? Shot them, is the answer. So if you're following these tips and tricks merchants, they are tyrants. Their ideas are tyranny. They pretend they're not, but they're still tyranny. They will shoot you. So go out on your own. Some people will take pot shots at you, but they've got nothing because they built nothing. All they're doing is standing on somebody else's pile of rocks. They got nothing. Build something. It may only go as far as this, like the Post No Bills cassette, which launched me, which is hopefully launching you right now. That's alright. Life is still getting its way. So build. Build your thing your way. If you cannot do things like mixing or making cover art, don't stop. Either do the best you can or find someone to work with you. Understand that they will bring their thing if you choose the right people, like Webb, who wrote most of the really great songs that Glenn Campbell's known for. Could sing, but just didn't have what it took to take those songs into the world. The two of them paired up, worked together. If you want to find a song as good as Careless Whisper, go listen to Wichita Lineman, Galveston, any of these. Just, they don't get better. The two of them together. So work with people. Allow what it is they bring to help build your thing. Sometimes people say to me, oh, but Benedict, I couldn't hire you because you're too egotistical, man. You want to change my art. No, I want your art to be unchanged. You're trying to change your art. You're trying to turn your art into what some tips and tricks told you. I don't want to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. I'm trying to get you your real story. If I'm saying to you, look, when you're singing, all I hear is fear, I'm not telling you you're a shit singer. I'm telling you that I want you to sing. I'm telling you you're good enough to sing. But you've got to stop telling yourself that you're not good enough to sing. You've got to stop listening to the Hitler inside you that's going, oh, but I have to this, that, and the other one. Fuck off. Nobody cares about that. Lou Reed had a career as a singer. Bob Dylan has a career as a singer. You cannot be worse. But you can be as great as them if you simply tell Hitler to go where he belongs, which is his grave, and start singing. Get their story out. Get the story on tape. And the rest will look after itself. That's what I'm trying to do for you, to actually bring your true story out in a way that your fans, the people who want to hear your story, are going to go, wow. Just as they go, wow, when they listen to Wish You Were Here, Dark Side of the Moon, Wichita Lineman, any of those magical things. Just as I feel when I listen to Post No Bills. It's still like, might be rough as guts, but there's power in these songs. Put that power down. Forget everything that's happened in the last 30 or so years. All they wanted to do was destroy. They wanted you to destroy yourself. Give them a big middle finger. There's one from me. Get on and do your thing. And do your thing so that the right people, the real fans who are looking for you, are going to stumble on you and go, wow, it's going to change their lives. Like this Post No Bills tape has a handle in changing my life. And again, if you've listened this far and got what I'm saying, right now it's changing your life too. Now these people will probably never know, but it doesn't matter. the work still got done. You have a good day now.